You saw it coiled by the back step, that pale cotton-white mouth open wide, and every instinct in your body said, "Grab the shovel." I know that feeling. I stood in exactly that spot 3 summers ago, a garden hoe in my hands, my heart going like a hammer. But here is what I learned, and it stopped me cold. Killing that snake is the single most dangerous thing you can do in that moment. Not walking away, killing it. The old-timers in my county knew this once, and somewhere along the way we forgot it and replaced it with fear and a long-handled shovel. By the end of this, I am going to show you a study from 2002, run by a scientist at the University of Georgia, that proves what your grandparents understood by instinct. And I promise you this works whether you have a pond out back, a creek at the property line, or just a damp ditch by the road you already live with right now. Let me take you back to that afternoon. My well pump sits in a little concrete box near the tree line, and the ground there stays wet no matter the season. That is where I found him. Thick body, that blocky head, sitting in a loose coil like a length of old rope somebody dropped. My neighbor Earl had told me for years, kill everyone you see, no questions. So I raised the hoe, and then I hesitated. Something my late father said drifted back to me. Something about how the men who got bit were almost always the men swinging at the snake. I put the hoe down. I did not kill it. Instead, I went inside and started digging, and what I found rewired everything I thought I knew about the cottonmouth. The first thing I found is going to make some of you uncomfortable, so let me just say it plainly. The odds are very good that the snake you are about to kill is not a cottonmouth at all. I did not believe this either. I thought I could spot a water moccasin from 30 feet. But when I started reading through the identification guides put out by state wildlife agencies, the same warning came up over and over. Across the American South, the animal killed most often under the name cottonmouth is actually a harmless water snake, usually a banded water snake or a northern water snake, doing absolutely nothing but sunning itself near the water. Here is why the confusion runs so deep. When a harmless water snake feels threatened, it flattens its head and its body to look bigger and more dangerous. It puffs up. It makes itself look exactly like the venomous snake you are afraid of, because looking scary keeps it alive. So the very snake that is completely safe is the one most likely to be putting on a frightening show. And you, standing there with your shovel, read that show as a threat and swing. I learned the real tells, and they are simple. Once somebody shows you, a true cottonmouth has a thick, heavy body that looks almost too big for its tail, and it tapers off quick at the end. Its head is blocky and wide at the jaw, wider than its neck, with a kind of dark mask running back from the eye. When it swims, a cottonmouth rides high, its whole body floating on top of the water like a stick. A harmless water snake swims low, with just its head poking up, the rest of it under the surface. And the eyes, if you are ever close enough and safe enough to see, a cottonmouth has a vertical pupil like a cat in daylight. The harmless water snakes have round pupils. I am not telling you to lean in and check. I am telling you that the fear is doing most of the identifying, and the fear is usually wrong. Now think about what that means. Every year, in yards and along creeks all over the country, people are killing harmless snakes they mistook for a threat and putting themselves in danger to do it. They feel safer afterward. They are not. Because here is the clue that pulled me deeper into this, the fact that genuinely stunned me when I read it. The moment you decide to kill the snake is the exact moment you are most likely to be bitten. Let me show you the numbers, because the numbers do not lie the way fear does. Every year in the United States, somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 people are bitten by venomous snakes. That sounds like a lot until you learn the next part. Out of all those thousands of bites, only about 5 or 6 people die in an average year. Your chance of being killed by a venomous snake in this country, if you get medical care, is smaller than your chance of being struck by lightning. But it is the pattern of who gets bitten that matters here. When researchers actually looked at how these bites happen, a clear picture emerged. A very large share of venomous snake bites in America happen when a person is deliberately messing with the snake, trying to catch it, trying to move it, and most of all, trying to kill it. Think about the mechanics of it for a second. A snake sitting in a coil wants one thing: to be left alone. It cannot outrun you. It cannot reason with you. When you swing a hoe or a shovel at it and miss, or when you only wound it, you have now put your hands and feet inside the one small circle that snake can actually reach. A cottonmouth can strike about 1/3 to 1/2 of its own body length in a fraction of a second, faster than you can pull back. You are not in danger standing 6 feet away watching it. You put yourself in danger the instant you stepped inside that circle to attack. There is a bitter irony buried in this that I could not stop thinking about. People kill snakes because they are afraid of being bitten, and the act of killing the snake is the single most common way that people actually get bitten. The fear creates the very outcome the fear is trying to prevent. I sat with that for a long while. And then I started asking a harder question. If this is true, if leaving the snake alone is genuinely safer than attacking it, why did nobody ever teach me that? Why did I grow up believing the only good cottonmouth was a dead one? That is when I started to see who benefited from my fear. Because fear, it turns out, sells a great many products. Walk into any farm store or type a few words online and you will find a whole shelf built on the terror of snakes. Granules you scatter around your foundation. Electronic stakes you push into the ground that are supposed to hum and drive snakes off. Sprays and pellets and ultrasonic gadgets, all promising to keep the serpents away for a price. I bought some of it myself, back before I knew better. $40 here, $30 there, scattered around my property like magic dust. And when I finally dug into the research from the University Extension Services, the people whose whole job is to test these claims with no product to sell, I found the truth. Most of those snake repellent products do essentially nothing. The granules, the mothball-smelling powders, the ultrasonic stakes. Study after study found no reliable effect. Snakes do not hear airborne sound the way we do, so the noisemakers are worthless. And the smell-based repellents wash away with the first rain. So here is the machine as I came to understand it. First, you are taught, from childhood, that every snake near your home is a deadly enemy that must be destroyed. That fear gets planted deep. Then, once the fear is in place, a whole industry steps up to sell you the cure for a problem that was mostly imaginary in the first place. You pay for the powder, you pay for the stakes, and you never once question whether the snake was the danger you were told it was. The old farmers did not buy any of this. And that is the next clue, because when I went looking for how people used to think about the cottonmouth before the fear industry got hold of us, I found something that turned my stomach in the best possible way. They did not just tolerate these snakes. In some places, they protected them on purpose. Let me explain why, because once you understand the job this animal does, you will never look at it the same way again. I want you to picture the ground around your home the way a cottonmouth sees it. That damp edge, where the yard meets the trees. The old wood pile. The gap under the shed. To you, those are just parts of the property. To a rat or a mouse, they are a highway and a dining hall. And where you have rodents, you have every problem that rodents bring. Chewed wiring, fouled feed, disease carried in their droppings and on their bodies. The cottonmouth is a rodent-eating machine that works for free and never sends a bill. It patrols that wet margin at night, and it eats the mice and rats and other small pests that would otherwise breed in the dozens right next to where you live. A single snake working your property line is doing pest control that an exterminator would charge you good money to attempt, and doing it more thoroughly because it goes into the burrows and the tight spaces the exterminator never reaches. But rodents are only half the story, and this is the half that stopped me in my tracks. Cottonmouths eat other snakes. They will eat copperheads. They are cannibals that will even eat smaller cottonmouths. So that thick-bodied snake sitting near your pond is not just controlling the mouse population. It is actively holding down the population of other venomous snakes in its territory, snakes that might otherwise move in. This is where the science gets almost unbelievable, and I had to read it twice. A cottonmouth is territorial in its own loose way. It occupies a stretch of habitat and defends its patch. When you kill that snake, you do not create a snake-free zone. You create a vacancy. You have just posted a for rent sign on a prime piece of real estate, and the next snake down the line, which might be a copperhead, which might be a more nervous animal, moves right in to fill the space you emptied. I found this idea confirmed in the way wildlife biologists describe it. Removing the resident predator does not remove the problem. It just reshuffles who lives there, and often you trade a stable, well-fed snake that wanted nothing to do with you for a newcomer you know nothing about. The devil you know, sitting quietly by the water, was keeping 3 devils you do not know from ever showing up. Now, I know exactly what a lot of you are thinking right now, because I thought it too. This is all fine for somebody with 40 acres in a far-off creek, but what about me? I have got one sitting by my porch this week. I have got grandchildren who play in that yard. I have got a dog. This coexistence talk is nice for people starting fresh, but I already have a snake and a problem right now. And that is the whole reason I sat down and wrote these books in the first place. Because everything I have shown you so far about the snake is one thread out of a much bigger cloth, and the same trick has been played on you with the ticks, the roaches, the mice, the mosquito zapper on the deck, the quarterly contract, the man who quotes you good money to haul off the very animal that was doing the work for free. In the collection, I wrote out the whole system the way my grandparents lived it, the dated bulletins and extension records behind it, and a 30-day plan where every fix uses what is already sitting in your garage right now, a scrapboard, a brush pile, a bucket, an untouched corner. No spray, no zapper, no removal, quote, ever again, and you will be able to explain to your wife and to your neighbor exactly why you changed. If you want the full thing, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment. Now, back to those old farmers, because they did something with the cottonmouth that most people today would find hard to believe. So this next part is built specifically for you, the person with a cottonmouth near the house today and a real family to protect. Everything here you can do this weekend with what you already own. No purchase, no professional, no shovel. Start with the single most important thing, and it costs you nothing but a little discipline. Give the snake a way out and time to take it. A cottonmouth does not want to be near you any more than you want to be near it. 9 times out of 10, if you simply back away and leave the area, that snake will be gone within the hour, moving off to a quieter spot on its own. The vast majority of these encounters end by themselves the moment you stop cornering the animal. If you truly need it to move along faster, reach for the one tool that actually works and that you already have: a garden hose. A cottonmouth hates being blasted with a steady stream of water. Stand back at a safe distance, well outside its striking range, and spray it. It will not fight the water. It will leave. You have moved a venomous snake off your porch without ever coming within reach of it, without a shovel, without a single dollar spent, and without putting your hands at a premier near those fangs. A long-handled broom used gently from a distance can do the same thing, nudging without cornering. Now, take a slow walk around your home with new eyes, because the real work is not removing this snake. It is making your yard boring to the next one. Snakes go where the food and the cover are, so you take away both. That wood pile stacked against the house, move it away from the walls and up off the ground on a rack. Those piles of leaves and brush along the fence, clear them out, because that is where the mice nest, and where the mice nest, the snakes follow. Keep the grass cut short near the house, because a snake feels exposed and unwelcome crossing open, mowed ground, and it will avoid it. Look at the water, too, since the cottonmouth is a water snake at heart. A dripping outdoor spigot, a clogged gutter dumping into a puddle, an old tarp holding rainwater, a pet dish left out overnight. Every one of those is an invitation. Fix the drip, clear the gutter, empty the standing water, and you have quietly removed the very thing that drew the snake to your foundation in the first place. Then close the doors you did not know were open. Walk your foundation and look for gaps, the space under a shed, a hole where a pipe enters the house, a torn vent screen, a gap under a poorly fitted door. Snakes do not dig their own way in. They use openings that already exist. Stuff those gaps, screen those vents, sweep out the corners where a snake might want to hide. Steel wool and a little hardware cloth from the drawer in your garage will seal most of them. None of this requires you to touch a snake. None of it requires you to buy a bag of useless granules. And none of it requires you to swing a shovel and step into the striking circle where the bites actually happen. You are working with what you own, the same way people did for generations before the fear industry convinced us we needed to buy our safety in a plastic jug. Do all that, and you have made yourself far safer than any pile of dead snakes ever could. But I promised you the real find at the end of this trail, the thing that ties it all together, the piece of buried research that proves the old-timers were right to leave these snakes alone, and that is where I want to take you now. For a long time, everything I have told you was still, in a way, just an argument. Snakes are safer than we think. Killing them is riskier than leaving them. But arguments do not settle a thing when a venomous snake is looking right at you with its mouth open. What settled it for me was finding out that a scientist had actually put it to the test, on purpose, in the field, with real wild cottonmouths, and written down exactly what happened. His name is Dr. Whit Gibbons, a herpetologist who spent his career at the University of Georgia and its Savannah River Ecology Laboratory. In the year 2002, he and a colleague published a study in a scientific journal, and the whole purpose of that study was to answer one honest question. If a person actually encounters a wild cottonmouth in the way people really do, how dangerous is that snake truly? So, they did what almost nobody had the nerve to do properly before. They went out and found 45 wild cottonmouths, not zoo animals, wild ones, and they tested how each one behaved when a human interfered with it in 3 escalating stages. And they recorded every single response. In the first test, a researcher simply stood right next to the snake, close, the way you might stumble upon one on a trail. And here is the number that I want carved into every fence post in America. Out of all those wild, venomous snakes, with a person standing right beside them, not one single snake bit, not one. The overwhelming response was to sit still or to try to leave. In the second test, they went further than any of us would ever do by accident. Wearing a snake-proof boot, the researcher actually stepped on the snake, stepped on it, and even then, even with a boot pressing down on its body, only a portion of the snakes tried to bite. More than half still did not. And in the third test, the most extreme of all, they used a fake hand to actually pick the snakes up, the ultimate provocation. Only a little over a third of them bit even then. Roughly 2 out of every 3 wild cottonmouths, physically lifted off the ground by what they thought was a predator, still chose not to sink their fangs in. Sit with that for a moment. A snake with a reputation as one of the most aggressive animals in the South. And when a scientist stood beside dozens of them, zero bit. When he stepped on them, most still would not. The aggression we all grew up believing in is very nearly a myth. The cottonmouth is not looking to attack you. It is looking to be left alone, and it will absorb an astonishing amount of provocation before it defends itself. Now here is the part that finally explained that terrifying open-mouth display, the one that made me raise my hoe in the first place. That white cottonmouth gape, the thing the snake is named for, is not an attack. It is the opposite. It is a warning flag. The snake is showing you the inside of its mouth to say, plainly and honestly, I am dangerous. Please do not come closer. It is a plea, not a threat. A cottonmouth throwing that gape is a snake that desperately wants you to stop and go away so that it never has to bite you at all. We spent generations reading a white flag of surrender as a declaration of war, and this is where the trail connected all the way back through history for me. Because when I chased this idea backward in time, I found the naturalists had been trying to tell us this for centuries, and we stopped listening. Mark Catesby, an English naturalist who traveled the American South and published his great illustrated natural history in the 1730s, described these water snakes with care rather than hysteria. And Raymond Ditmars, the famous reptile curator at the Bronx Zoo, wrote in his reptile book back in 1907 that the cottonmouth, for all its fearsome name, was a sluggish creature that relied on threat display far more than on actually striking. The knowledge was there. It was written down by careful observers going back 300 years and confirmed by hard field science in 2002. The men who worked the land near the water once understood that the resident snake was a rat-catching, copperhead-eating, mostly bluffing tenant that cost them nothing and saved them plenty. And then we buried all of it under a wave of fear and shovels and $40 bags of powder that never worked. So here is what you actually do with all of this. The whole trail brought down to something you can carry with you starting today. When you see that snake by the step, you do not reach for a tool, you stop. You look for the real signs. The blocky head, the fat body, the way it swims high. So you even know what you are dealing with. You give it room and time. And you let it do what 45 wild cottonmouths taught Dr. Gibbons they overwhelmingly want to do, which is leave. If it must move now, you use the hose from a safe distance. And then you spend an afternoon making your yard the wrong place for the next one, with the rake and the mower and the steel wool you already own. You end up safer than the man with the shovel ever was. You keep a free exterminator working your property line, and you stop paying the fear tax that somebody has been collecting from good, careful people for a very long time. Here is the thing I felt standing in my yard that day. Once I understood all this, I felt like something had been handed back to me that had been quietly taken away, a piece of plain common sense my own grandfather would have known without thinking twice. The fear was never mine, it was sold to me, and the calm that replaced it, that came from the truth. If you are the kind of person who would rather understand the thing in front of you than blindly swing at it, the kind who trusts a proven fact over a scary story with a product attached, then you already think the way the old farmers thought, and this channel was built for you. So let me ask you something, and I truly want your answer. Have you ever killed a snake near your home that you now suspect, after hearing all this, was just a harmless water snake putting on a show? Or has one been living quietly on your property for years, doing its job while you left it be? Tell me about it in the comments. I read them, and I want to hear these stories. And while you are down there, tell me what part of the country you are watching from, because the snake stories from Louisiana and the ones from Ohio are worlds apart, and I love hearing all of them. If this pulled back the curtain for you even a little, come join the rest of us who are digging up this old, practical, buried knowledge one piece at a time, and follow along so you do not miss what comes next. because the next thing I went looking for surprised me even more. An old kitchen ingredient that country folk swore kept snakes out of a chicken coop, one that modern science says actually might do something after all. I found the record on it, and I cannot wait to show you. Before you go, one thing. Everything I showed you today was just the overview. Inside the Old Ways Almanac, I've put together the full guide to safe cottonmouth identification and removal, picking up right where this video stopped. And if you're ever unsure about a snake in your yard, you can ask me directly. And a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone either. Point your phone at the code. Cancel any time. Now, cottonmouths aren't the only snake you might meet near home. There's another one folks get wrong all the time, and knowing the truth could keep you and your family safer. That video's starting right here.